Audiobook number 6, one of two, of the RV Family series. Title: The Lost of a Friend. Chapter 1, The Rainy Road Ahead. The windshield wipers squeaked across the glass like someone squeezing a balloon too tightly. It had been raining since dawn, long, silvery streaks that slid sideways across the RV's broad windows. The Wexlers were on the move again. Inside the warm, gently rocking RV, Mayo Wexler sat curled on the couch with his chin propped on the armrest, watching the raindrops race each other down the pane. A big woolly blanket draped over his lap, and tucked beneath it was Meatball, his squishy white French bulldog, deaf in one ear, delightfully wrinkled, and entirely too pleased with himself. "This rain is a personal attack," Meatball said into Mayo's head, his voice dry and theatrical. "I haven't had a good sun nap in 4 days. I'm starting to wrinkle more than usual." Mayo smiled, careful not to laugh out loud. Nobody else could hear Meatball except him and his brothers, Jesse and Robbie. Not even Mom and Dad. That was part of the secret. And Mayo was good at keeping secrets. Jesse, who had recently turned 16 and made sure everyone remembered it, sat across the RV at the table, headphones on and hoodie pulled low over his forehead. He barely glanced up as the RV bounced a little over a pothole. Robbie, Mayo's 7-year-old little brother, was perched on a beanbag with a notebook and a pack of markers, carefully drawing a picture of himself as a ninja astronaut cowboy. He looked up suddenly and gasped. "Do you think the new town will have chocolate donuts?" he asked, blinking wide-eyed at the ceiling like he was praying to the donut gods. "I bet they'll have a donut so big it needs a leash," Meatball quipped. "And I will heroically volunteer to eat it." Mayo stifled a snort. From the front of the RV, Mr. Wexler's voice drifted back. 30 more miles, team. Get your boots ready, it's a cold one." Mrs. Wexler leaned over from the passenger seat and added, "They call this place Misty Pines. Population 6,342, and apparently famous for its fog and homemade berry jam." Mayo sat up a little. Misty Pines. The name sounded like something out of a mystery novel, a town where secrets hung in the air thicker than the fog. He felt the familiar prickle at the back of his neck that usually meant one thing: there's something interesting here. The RV turned a gentle bend, tires hissing against the wet asphalt, and ahead of them, the forest rose up like a green wall. Pine trees thick with moss lined the road, tall and shadowed in the mist. Even the road signs looked like they had secrets. "You sure this isn't a ghost town?" Meatball asked, nose twitching. "Because I left my ghost fighting sword in the last town." "There's no such thing as ghosts," Mayo whispered. "That's exactly what someone haunted by a ghost would say." Jesse pulled off one earbud and gave Mayo a look. "Are you talking to Meatball again?" Mayo shrugged. "Maybe." Jesse rolled his eyes and put his earbud back in. But Mayo noticed, just barely, that he smiled a little too. The RV pulled into a narrow drive lined with string lights and a handmade sign that read Misty Pines RV Park, hot showers, cold nights, no loud parties. The place looked cozy, with cabins scattered through the trees and smoke curling from a chimney near the park office. Mr. Wexler parked the RV with practiced ease and stretched his arms over his head. Home sweet home for the next few weeks. Mrs. Wexler opened the side door, and a rush of cool, piney air swept in. "Everyone out. Let's get this rig hooked up and then go into town for supplies." Robbie grabbed his drawing. Jesse grabbed his phone. Mayo stood and slipped on his boots. "Adventure?" Meatball asked, tilting his head. "Adventure," Mayo replied. He stepped out into the cold drizzle, fog curling around his ankles like smoke, and breathed in deep. Somewhere in the back of his mind, just beneath the rustle of trees and whisper of wind, he heard a thought that wasn't his. "Hope they don't ask too many questions." Mayo paused and looked up. The fog was thick, but the thought was clear. He smiled a little to himself. This town had secrets, and he was going to find them. Chapter 2, The Pines, the Fog, and the Bowling Alley. The town of Misty Pines was tucked between two pine-covered hills and stitched together by one winding main street that looked like it had been lifted out of a storybook and dusted with fog. After setting up at the RV park, the Wexlers loaded into their trusty red SUV nicknamed Clunky because the passenger side door creaked like a haunted violin and headed into town. Downtown Misty Pines was cozy and old-fashioned. Wooden storefronts leaned gently against each other like gossiping neighbors. Hand-painted signs swung from rusted brackets, and every shop window was dressed with cheerful lights, despite the constant drizzle. The sidewalks were lined with planters full of deep green ferns and purple flowers Mayo didn't recognize. "Do you see that?" Mrs. Wexler said from the passenger seat. "There's a homemade candle shop and a store that sells only puzzles?" "Someone please stop this madness," Jesse muttered, still scrolling his phone. "I want a puzzle," Meatball said into Mayo's mind. "But only if it smells like bacon." Mayo grinned. "You'd eat it in 5 minutes. Correction. 3. They passed a bakery called the Foggy Muffin, a tiny cinema that only played classic movies, and a general store called Pines and Needles. But what caught everyone's attention was the building at the end of the street, a bowling alley lit up with neon lights, its sign flashing pine pin lanes in glowing green letters. "We're definitely coming back here," Robbie declared from the back seat, his nose pressed to the window. "They have glow bowling. And a snack bar." "And claw machines," Mayo added, spotting the rainbow row of blinking arcade games through the glass. "Claw machines are a scam," Meatball sniffed. "I once saw a kid put in $5 and only win 3 stress balls and a small sense of regret." Mr. Wexler pulled into a parking spot near the town grocery store. "Let's split up," he said. "Mom and I will grab groceries. Jesse, take your brothers and scout out that bowling alley. Just look, don't book anything yet. We still need to plan Robbie's birthday." "Wait, I get to go with Jesse?" Robbie asked, eyes wide. "This is the best day of my life." Jesse groaned dramatically. "Why am I the one who has to supervise Tiny Tornado and Mr. Detective over here?" "Because you're the oldest," Mrs. Wexler said sweetly, already halfway out the door. Jesse looked at Mayo, who raised his eyebrows like "don't look at me," and then at Robbie, who was vibrating with excitement. "Fine," Jesse muttered. "Let's go investigate the neon palace of pizza and noise." As they walked down the sidewalk, the mist curled around their ankles and drifted between buildings like it had a mind of its own. "This fog is suspicious," Meatball said. "It's too quiet. Like it knows something." They reached the bowling alley just as the lights inside flickered and buzzed to life. The warm, greasy smell of popcorn and nacho cheese drifted through the doors. Inside, the place looked like it hadn't changed since the 1980s, bright carpet, disco balls, and colorful murals of pine trees playing bowling. Mayo spotted the counter, where a tall, wiry man with wild red hair and a bow tie was handing out shoes to a group of giggling teens. "That's the owner," Jesse said. "I saw him on a poster outside. His name's Mr. Reggie." Mr. Reggie looked over and gave them a big smile. "Howdy, boys. Welcome to Pine Pin Lanes. You here to bowl, snack, or conquer the claw machines?" "Just looking," Jesse replied quickly. "Our little brother might have his birthday here." Robbie perked up. "Actually, I am the little brother, and I am having my birthday here." "Then we'll have to roll out the red carpet," Mr. Reggie said with a dramatic flourish. "And maybe even a clown." "You like clowns?" Robbie hesitated. I think so." "Clowns," Meatball said. "Nope. Hard pass." "I've seen things, Mayo." Mayo wasn't so sure either. Mr. Reggie had a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. And for a bowling alley owner, he had very clean shoes. Still, Mayo smiled politely. Cool place. As they wandered toward the arcade, Jesse pulled Mayo aside. "Okay, detective. I saw your face. You got a weird vibe from him, too." Mayo blinked. "You noticed that?" Jesse nodded. "Just because I don't talk a lot doesn't mean I don't see stuff." "Shocking character development," Meatball whispered. I'm so proud of him. After a few minutes poking around the machines and snack bar, the boys met their parents outside the grocery store with 2 bags of cookies and 1 box of birthday decorations. We'll book it tomorrow, Mr. Wexler said as they drove back to the RV. Sound good, birthday boy? Sounds amazing, Robbie shouted. Best birthday ever incoming. Back at the RV, as the family unpacked the groceries and set up dinner, Mayo sat quietly on the couch, Meatball curled against his leg. Something feels off about Mr. Reggie, Mayo thought, more to himself than to Meatball. You don't trust a man who wears bowling shoes that clean, Meatball replied. It's a universal rule. Outside, the rain pattered gently on the roof, and the pine trees swayed. Somewhere beneath it all, Mayo felt the faintest whisper of another thought, distant but real. Just a few more days, then I'm gone. Chapter 3, Robbie's Big Birthday Bash. The sun never really rose in Misty Pines. It just sort of yawned, stretched behind a blanket of fog, and said, this is good enough. But that didn't stop the Wexlers from celebrating something big, Robbie Wexler's 8th birthday. From the moment he opened his eyes, Robbie was a bouncing, beaming blur of excitement. Is today the day? He asked, jumping onto Mayo's bed and accidentally squashing Meatball's head in the process. This is a hate crime, Meatball mumbled, his smushed face buried in a pillow. Today's the day, Mayo groaned, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. Happy birthday, little dude. Robbie grinned so wide it looked like his cheeks might pop off. Bowling, pizza, presents. And I invited Ellie and Landon and Zeus. You think Zeus will wear a party hat? If he does, I'll eat mine in protest, said Meatball. Dignity above all. Zeus, the old blue-nosed pit bull who belonged to Robbie's new friend Ellie, was about 105 in dog years, sarcastic in the way only wise old dogs can be, and moved like every step was an ancient negotiation with gravity. But he had agreed, somehow, to come to the party. All right, party patrol, Mr. Wexler announced after breakfast. Load up. We've got decorations, cupcakes, and a possibly terrifying clown waiting for us at Pine Pin Lanes. I said I was okay with the clown, Robbie said with a shrug. Sort of. As long as he doesn't juggle knives. Or smell like something that died in a compost heap, Meatball added. Clowns always smell like decisions gone wrong. The bowling alley was lit up like a carnival, neon lights glowing through the fog, bubble machines hissing in the corners, and the snack bars smelling like melted cheese and happiness. Mr. Reggie, the quirky owner with the 2 clean shoes, stood at the door in a sparkly green vest. Birthday boy, he announced, bowing low to Robbie. Right this way to your party lane. The Wexlers were shown to 2 lanes decorated with streamers, balloons, and a giant cardboard cutout of a bowling pin wearing a party hat. The guests arrived shortly after Ellie, her brother Landon, and the wise old Zeus, who trotted in slowly and immediately lay down under the table like he was claiming the high ground. Happy birthday, Ellie said, handing Robbie a sparkly blue gift bag. We got you something cool. It's not socks. Best gift ever already, Robbie declared. As the kids bowled, laughed, and devoured slices of pepperoni pizza, Mayo kept glancing at the clown Mr. Reggie had hired. The man's wig looked like it had been stolen from a rainbow, his nose honked every time he blinked, and worst of all, he smelled like a barn in summer. Do you smell that? Mayo whispered to Meatball, who was hiding under the table next to Zeus. It's like someone used manure for cologne, Meatball grumbled. That clown is a biohazard. I've smelled worse, Zeus added in his slow, gravelly voice. But not often. As the kids lined up for cupcakes, the clown performed magic tricks that mostly involved dropping things and mumbling about forgetting his rabbit. Jesse filmed a few on his phone and whispered to Mayo, "This guy's either a genius performance artist or deeply confused." I think he's just stinky, Mayo said. Still, aside from the smell, the party was a hit. Robbie won 2 stuffed animals from the claw machine, which Meatball still insisted was a scam, and Ellie helped him bowl a strike that nearly made the ceiling shake. At the end, Mr. Reggie rolled out a cake shaped like a giant bowling ball, complete with 3-finger holes full of sprinkles. Everyone sang. Robbie beamed. Even Jesse smiled for real when Robbie gave him a slice with extra frosting. That was the best birthday ever, Robbie sighed happily as they packed up to leave. Back in the RV that night, everyone was wiped out. Mrs. Wexler took off her shoes and put her feet up. Mr. Wexler dozed with a book on his chest. Robbie fell asleep mid-sentence while talking about whether zoos could drive if he had dog thumbs. Mayo sat by the window with Meatball curled beside him. "You felt it, right?" Mayo whispered. "Yep," Meatball replied. "Something's weird about that clown. And Mr. Reggie. And the fact that nobody else notices the smell." Mayo looked out into the misty night, the alley's neon lights flickering just visible in the distance. "Something about today doesn't sit right," he said. "It's not just the clown. It's something else." "Then we do what we always do," Meatball said, eyes half-lidded. "We sniff out the weird. And we follow the stink." Mayo chuckled and scratched behind Meatball's ear. The mystery hadn't arrived yet, not fully, but he could feel it coming. The fog outside deepened. Somewhere out there, Misty Pines was waiting to reveal its secrets. And Mayo Wexler was ready. Chapter 4. The Trouble with Clowns. The next morning, the RV shook with laughter and cereal bowls rattled as the boys relived every ridiculous moment from Robbie's party. "I still can't believe that clown dropped his hat in the punch bowl," Jesse said, wiping his eyes. "I can," Meatball muttered from his usual spot under the breakfast table. The man looked like he lost a wrestling match with his own shoes. Robbie giggled mid-chew. "He told me his name was Skippy Sparklepants." "That name alone is a red flag," Meatball added. "A man named Sparklepants should not smell like compost." Mayo wasn't laughing. Not really. He was thinking about something that had been bothering him since the party, not just the smell or the way the clown's balloon animals looked more like balloon accidents. It was something else. Something he felt. Something off. Later that day, Mr. and Mrs. Wexler dropped Jesse off at the hardware store to help Mr. Wexler pick out supplies, and Mrs. Wexler took Robbie to the park. That gave Mayo and Meatball the perfect excuse to do a little investigating. "Well," Mayo said, slipping on his hoodie, "let's take a walk." "Define walk," said Meatball. "Is this a regular walk? Or one of your we might run into danger walks?" Mayo smiled. "Let's call it a sniff around." Pine Pin lanes looked even quieter in the daytime, but Mayo could see a flicker of light coming from one of the back rooms. He crept around to the side window, Meatball trotting beside him. Inside, Mr. Reggie, the alley's owner, was stacking bags of what looked like glitter-covered bowling pins into a large, locked closet. "Okay, that's not weird at all," Mayo whispered. "You know what else I don't like?" Meatball added. "That guy never blinks. I've been watching. He just stares like a sleepy snake." Suddenly, Mr. Reggie turned and looked straight toward the window. Mayo dropped to the ground. "He saw us." "Correction," Meatball said, tail wagging. "He felt us. Some people just get prickly when secrets are leaking out their windows." They scurried away, ducking behind a dumpster. Mayo's heart thumped hard in his chest. "I think something's going on in there," he whispered. "I think Sparklepants was the least suspicious person there yesterday," Meatball replied. "Which is saying a lot, because that man mistook his wig for a cupcake at one point." That afternoon, Jesse pulled the RV into the local bank's parking lot. It was time for Robbie to open his very first big kid savings account, and Mayo and Meatball tagged along to supervise. Inside, the bank was clean and quiet. The floor was shiny, the counters were tall, and everyone spoke in polite whispers. Robbie held his birthday money envelope like it was made of gold. "Hi, I'd like to put my money in the big safe, please," Robbie said proudly to the teller. The woman smiled. "Well, we'll get it in a safe spot for sure." Just then, the doors slammed open. 3 people in ski masks stormed in. One of them carried a duffel bag. Another pointed what looked like a weapon at the ceiling. "This is a robbery," one shouted. "Everyone on the ground." The room exploded in gasps and screams. Mayo grabbed Robbie and pulled him down behind the counter. "This is not part of the errand," Meatball whispered from under the desk. Mayo's heart pounded. He peeked around the edge and caught a glimpse of one of the robbers, their shoes. Bright red. Glittery. "Is it just me?" Meatball whispered in Mayo's mind. "Or do those look a lot like clown shoes?" Mayo's eyes widened. "I think," he said slowly, "we just found our next clue." Chapter 5. The Clue in the Clown Shoes. Everything in the bank seemed to freeze. Even the robbers, standing in the center of the marble floor, hesitated like they weren't quite sure what to do next. One shouted something about the vault. Another waved their arms in frustration. But Mayo was focused on only one thing, the glittering red clown shoes. "Tell me I'm not hallucinating," Meatball whispered from under the bench. "Because those are definitely comedy shoes." "They're the same kind the clown wore at Robbie's party," Mayo muttered. "The exact kind." "You're saying a birthday clown just tried to rob a bank?" "I'm saying someone dressed like a clown did." Mayo carefully peered over the counter again, just in time to see the three robbers make a run for it. A burst of red smoke exploded from one of their duffel bags as they darted out the front entrance and vanished into the fog. The bank doors swung shut behind them. The alarm wailed to life. Robbie popped up beside Mayo, clutching his envelope. "That was awesome." "Scary, but awesome." "You okay?" Mayo asked, checking him over. "I didn't even drop my money," Robbie said proudly. "But, are we gonna tell Mom and Dad about this part?" Mayo made a face. "Eventually." "Right after we solve it," Meatball added. "And right before they ground us for a year." Back in the RV, the Wexlers were caught in a flurry of phone calls, police statements, and general parent panic mode. Mr. Wexler kept saying things like government security breach and paperwork avalanche. Mrs. Wexler made all three boys soup even though none of them asked for it. But Mayo had other things on his mind. He waited until evening, then slipped out the RV door with Meatball beside him and Jesse quietly watching from the couch. "Where you going?" Jesse asked, not looking up from his phone. "Just walking, Meatball." "Right." Jesse tilted his head. "You mean investigating?" Mayo paused. Jesse raised an eyebrow. "I saw your face when the clown shoes walked into that bank," Jesse said. "You're up to something." Mayo hesitated. "We could use a ride," Meatball said casually. "Your brother's old enough to drive and reckless enough to be helpful." Mayo sighed. "Okay, fine. But you have to promise not to tell Mom and Dad." Jesse grinned. "As long as I'm not stuck with soup again, I'm in." That night, the three of them cruised back to Pine Pin Lanes in Jesse's dusty pickup truck. The bowling alley was dark, the neon sign flickering weakly in the mist. Mayo peered through the windows. "Looks empty," he whispered. "Empty's never empty," Meatball replied. "It's just waiting." They snuck around the side of the building again. Mayo checked the window where he'd seen Mr. Reggie the day before, and bingo. There he was. Inside, the bowling alley owner stood in front of a large duffel bag. He unzipped it and began pulling out wads of cash. A glittery red clown wig fell to the floor. Mayo's heart skipped. "Gotcha," Meatball said, tail twitching. Mr. Reggie turned toward the window again. This time, Mayo stayed hidden. "Let's go," Jesse whispered. "We need backup." "Not yet," Mayo said. "We still don't know why, or who helped him." Because Mr. Reggie couldn't have pulled off a bank robbery alone. Someone had to help with the timing, the getaway, the costume, maybe even the clown. "And the stink," Meatball added. "Let's not forget that part." Back in the truck, Mayo sat in silence, gears turning in his head. Jesse glanced over. "You okay?" "I'm thinking." "About?" Mayo looked up. "We need help. Ellie, Landon, and Zeus." "Especially Zeus," said Meatball. "That old dog might smell like library dust, but his nose works better than ours combined." Chapter 6. Team Zeus joins the case. The next morning, Mayo waited near the picnic tables behind Misty Pines Park. Fog curled over the pine needles, and the air smelled like wet wooden pancakes from the diner down the road. Robbie sat next to him, legs swinging. "Do you think Zeus will say yes?" Robbie asked, clutching his backpack full of walkie-talkies, a notebook, and 3 leftover cupcakes from his party. "Zeus is many things," Meatball replied, sprawled on the bench like royalty, but above all, he's a professional. Jesse leaned against a tree, hands in his jacket pockets. "You really think those kids from your party can help?" Mayo looked up. "Ellie's fast. Landon remembers everything. And Zeus, well, Zeus is basically Sherlock Holmes with fur." Right on cue, Ellie and Landon appeared, walking along the edge of the path with Zeus trotting between them. Zeus, the 15-year-old blue-nosed pit, walked like he had all the time in the world, his silver whiskers catching drops of mist. "Hey," Ellie waved. "You said it was important?" Mayo said, "We need your help." Actually, Zeus's help, too. Zeus sat down, sighed, and looked directly at Meatball. "Great," he said with a yawn. "Let me guess. You've dragged the humans something ridiculous again." "Bank robbery, glitter clown shoes, bowling alley," Meatball replied quickly. "Of course," Zeus muttered. Ellie and Landon blinked. "You two talk?" Ellie asked. "Kind of," Mayo said. "It's complicated, but we can understand them." Landon tilted his head. "Like, telepathically?" "Big word," Meatball said. "Gold star for the kid." They all gathered under the big pine tree and Mayo laid it out. The clown at the party, the bank robbery, the matching shoes, the late-night stakeout, and Mr. Reggie and the duffel bag full of cash. "Wait," Ellie said, holding up a finger. "You think Mr. Reggie, the guy who gave out free nachos, is a bank robber?" "He's hiding something," Mayo said. "And the clown? He might have been working for him." "Or as a distraction," Jesse added, "while someone else slipped out with the money." "What we need," Zeus said, scratching his ear, "is motive. No one robs a bank just because they like shiny coins." "I heard," Landon said slowly, "that Pine Pin Lanes was in trouble." "Like, big time. My dad said Mr. Reggie almost had to sell it last year." Mayo's eyes lit up. "So he's in debt." "Which means," Meatball added, "he's got a reason." Robbie pulled out a walkie-talkie. "So what do we do?" Mayo stood up. "We make a plan. If Mr. Reggie is the ringleader, we need to catch him in the act. That means watching the alley day and night." "Surveillance," Zeus said, nodding approvingly. "I like this kid style." They divided into teams. Jesse would drive a lookout route past the bank and alley. Ellie and Landon would keep watch from the diner across the street. Mayo, Meatball, and Zeus would stake out behind the alley's back door. "We call ourselves," Robbie declared, holding his walkie to his mouth, Team Lightning Taco. Everyone paused. "Why?" Meatball asked. "Because it sounds awesome," Robbie said with a grin. Zeus groaned. "I was hoping for something a little more dignified." That evening, as the sky darkened and the mist thickened again over Misty Pines, Team Lightning Taco took their positions. Mayo sat next to Meatball behind the alley's dumpster, binoculars in hand, breath fogging up the lenses. "I don't know how or when," Mayo whispered, "but Mr. Reggie is going to make his move. And when he does," Meatball replied, eyes narrowed, "we'll be there." From inside Mayo's backpack, Robbie's walkie crackled to life with a faint whisper. "Lightning Taco to Mayo. We've got movement." Chapter 7. The Alley Stakeout. The alley behind Pine Pin Lanes smelled like wet cardboard, old grease, and something even worse that Meatball refused to walk through. Mayo knelt behind a stack of soggy boxes with Meatball beside him. Zeus perched calmly behind a trash can like he'd done this 100 times. "Did I ever tell you about the biscuit heist of '09? Zeus muttered. "For raccoons, 2 squirrels, 1 missing crate of cheddar biscuits. Took me 3 days to unravel." "I bet you told the story all 3 days, too," Meatball whispered back. "Shoo," Mayo said. He raised his binoculars and peeked over the dumpster. The bowling alley's back door was still. Fog curled under the streetlights, making the whole alley glow like a movie scene. From the walkie-talkie in his hoodie pocket, Robbie's voice came through again, quiet but clear. Lightning taco to mayo. Ellie says Reggie's at the diner. Alone. Ordered a tuna melt. That means he's not in the alley yet, Mayo whispered. Unless he's got a twin, Meatball added. Jesse's voice came through next. Still no movement out front. Everything's normal. Too normal. Mayo flipped open his notebook and checked his scribbles. Clown sighting. Bank robbery. Reggie's midnight duffel bag. And now, a diner tuna melt alibi? It doesn't add up, Mayo muttered. That's because we're missing something, Zeus said, sniffing the air. Something important. Suddenly, a metallic clink echoed from behind the alley door. All three of them froze. Zeus lowered his head. Someone's in there. The back door creaked open. Mayo ducked behind the boxes, holding his breath. A man stepped out, wearing dark clothes and carrying a large black bag. His face was hidden by a hoodie. That's not Reggie, Meatball whispered. Mayo agreed. The figure was too tall, too lean. The man set the bag down and looked around. Then he pulled out something shiny keys and unlocked the back of a delivery van parked by the dumpster. He tossed the bag inside, slammed the door shut, and walked back into the alley entrance. Zeus's ears twitched. We've got a second suspect, he said. And he's not a clown. Mayo grabbed his notebook and started sketching what he saw. The van, the bag, the man's silhouette. Then he froze. A red feather. It floated down from the alley door just before it closed. Mayo picked it up gently. Part of the clown wig, he whispered. He wore it again. Maybe Reggie wasn't alone during the robbery, Meatball said. Maybe this guy wore the costume. Mayo's mind buzzed with theories. If this wasn't Reggie, then who was it? An employee? A friend? Someone Reggie owed money to? The walkie buzzed again. Update? Jesse asked. We've got a new lead, Mayo said into the mic, tall guy. Hoodie. Van. Might be our wig wearer. Copy that, Jesse replied. Want me to follow? Negative, Mayo said. Let's regroup first. Something big is happening. And I've got a feeling, Zeus said, rising slowly, that it's going to get even bigger. Back at the RV that night, Team Lightning Taco huddled around the small kitchen table. Mayo laid out the feather, the sketch, and everything he'd written so far. There's more than one person behind this, he told them. Reggie might be the brain, but someone else wore the clown suit. Someone who knew how to move fast, get in, get out, and vanish into fog. Ellie tapped the sketch. You think we'll see him again? Mayo nodded. Definitely. And next time, we'll be ready. Robbie held up his hand. Question. Yes. If this is like a real mystery, Robbie asked, do I get a cool code name now? Mayo smiled. Sure. From now on, you're Agent Cupcake. Affirmative, Meatball said, nodding solemnly. Agent Cupcake is on the case. Chapter 8. The Vanishing Clue. The next morning, Misty Pines was soaked in gray clouds and drizzle. Rain tapped gently on the roof of the RV as Mrs. Wexler poured mugs of hot cocoa and set out warm cinnamon toast for breakfast. You boys sure you want to go out today? She asked. It's dreary. We've got a lead to chase, Mayo said, pulling on his hoodie. Don't worry. Jesse's driving. Which is both comforting and slightly terrifying, Jesse muttered, taking a bite of toast. I call shotgun, Meatball said, already sitting by the front door, leash in his mouth. You don't even wear a seatbelt, Mayo replied. That's because I live dangerously, Meatball shot back. They gathered the team, Ellie, Landon, Zeus, and met in the parking lot of the Pine Pin Lanes. The van from the night before was gone. Vanished. Are you sure it was here? Jesse asked, frowning. Mayo pointed to the faint outline in the gravel. See that? Tire marks. Rain's washing it away, but it was parked here. Zeus padded forward and sniffed the air. His nose wrinkled. Gasoline. rubber, and something else. He sniffed again. Peppermint chewing gum? Meatball leaned down and sniffed, too. Yep, someone's breath mint addiction is about to give them away. Mayo pulled out his notebook. All right, the vans moved. Let's find out where it went. They split up. Jesse drove Mayo, Meatball, and Robbie around town in the family's small SUV. Ellie and Landon rode bikes down the boardwalk, and Zeus led a walking patrol along the wet back roads, his raincoat flapping as he trotted. Downtown Misty Pines was quiet. Most shops weren't open until noon. But Mayo noticed something strange near the edge of town. A tiny garage called Timber Tune-Up had a white delivery van parked outside, with mud-spattered wheels. He motioned for Jesse to stop. That could be it. They got out and approached. Meatball sniffed the tires and barked softly. Same scent. Peppermint. And mystery. Let's go around back, Mayo whispered. They crept behind the garage. Stacked boxes. A side door slightly ajar. Mayo peered through the crack. There, sitting on a wooden bench under a single light bulb, was a tall man in a hoodie. He was eating a sandwich and humming. And beside him on the floor was something that made Mayo's breath catch. A clown shoe. Bright red, glittery, and unmistakably familiar. Bingo, Meatball muttered. Mayo pulled back. We found him. Back at the alley, Ellie's walkie-talkie crackled. Mayo to Ellie. Found the van. And the guy. He's in Timber Tune-Up. Ellie's voice came back. Should we call the police? Not yet, Mayo said. I want to know why he did it. We need proof. If we rush, he could get away. He won't, Zeus said into the walkie. Not with me nearby. They regrouped in the park and formed a new plan. Tonight, Mayo said, we tail him. Jesse can follow the van. Zeus and I will go inside the bowling alley, see if Reggie is meeting him. If they're both in on it, they'll slip up. And when they do, Meatball said, Team Lightning Taco will be there to pounce. Robbie raised his walkie. Agent Cupcake reporting for duty. You're taking this name thing very seriously, Zeus noted. He's got the spirit, Meatball said proudly. Can't teach that. That night, as another blanket of mist settled over Misty Pines, the RV family once again became something more than travelers. They became detectives, investigators, and quiet shadows under street lamps. The mystery was unraveling, thread by thread. And soon, very soon, the truth would be out. Chapter 9. Secrets in the Gutter. The bowling alley was half empty by the time Mayo, Zeus, and Meatball slipped through the front doors that evening. The sound of pins crashing echoed through the building, mixing with classic rock and the occasional clatter of a dropped ball. This place smells like stale nachos and broken dreams, Meatball muttered, nose twitching. You say that like it's a bad thing, Zeus replied calmly. Jesse and Ellie were parked out front in the SUV, walkies in hand, ready to follow the van if it left again. Landon stayed with Robbie back at the RV, building decoy cardboard security cameras out of cereal boxes, just in case. Mayo kept his hoodie up and walked casually toward the arcade machines. From there, he had a clear view of the manager's office window. Sure enough, Reggie was inside, pacing. Then the man from the garage entered through the employee hallway. Mayo tensed. It's them, he whispered. They're talking. Let's get closer, Zeus said. I can hear heartbeats when I focus, and those two sound nervous. The three crept into the dim hallway that led to the service area and crouched near a cracked storage room door. Mayo pressed his ear against the wall. Reggie's voice was muffled but urgent. We can't keep this up. The clown thing was your idea, and now people are noticing. The taller man replied, Relax. Nobody saw my face. You got the money. A jangle of keys. A locker opened. This is it, Mayo whispered. They're hiding the stolen money here, not the garage. Then something clanged. The doorknob to the storage room started to turn. Move. Zeus barked, leaping behind a stack of pizza boxes. Mayo ducked under the cleaning sink and Meatball dove into a mop bucket. Reggie poked his head in, glanced around, then grabbed a roll of paper towels before closing the door again. They all exhaled. "Close one," Meatball said, soaking wet. "Remind me to never hide in a bucket again." Zeus's ears perked. They're talking about the bowling alley safe. Back outside, Mayo quickly scribbled a note and sent it with Meatball to Jesse at the SUV. "The stolen money is hidden in the bowling alley safe. Tonight, watching locker area. Ready to trap them." At 9:46 p.m., the last of the customers left. Lights dimmed. Reggie walked back into the hallway with the tall man following him, a heavy duffel bag in his hands. Mayo signaled from behind the soda machine. Zeus and Meatball flanked the hallway exit. They waited. "Now," Mayo whispered. "Gotcha," Meatball barked, leaping in front of the hallway. Zeus blocked the exit behind them, growling low. Reggie dropped the bag in shock. "What the?" Mayo stepped up from the shadows, holding his walkie. "Already called the police. You might want to sit down." "Who are you?" The tall man snapped. "Someone who's not falling for your clown act," Mayo said. "Or your disappearing ban. You left peppermint gum wrappers in the alley." "Rookie mistake," Zeus muttered. Suddenly, the back door slammed open. Jesse and Ellie stood there with Officer Burrows, the kind local cop with a mustache like a sleeping cat. "I believe that bag belongs to the Misty Pines Savings Bank," Officer Burrows said, lifting it up. Reggie groaned. "You've got to be kidding me. A bunch of kids." Meatball tilted his head. "Correction. Kids and one very handsome bulldog." Later that night, the Wexlers and their new friends sat in the RV, warm cocoa in hand. The case was over. Reggie and the mystery man, his cousin Daryl, had been arrested. Turns out, they'd planned the robbery for weeks, disguising Daryl as the clown to avoid suspicion. And all because Daryl owed money to his old bowling league, Mayo said. "A tale as old as 10 pins, Zeus sighed. Robbie beamed. "Agent Cupcake helped." "You sure did," Mayo said, ruffling his hair. "Team Lightning Taco always delivers," Meatball added, settling onto a pile of blankets. Mayo smiled and looked around the RV. The rain had stopped. Misty Pines felt a little brighter. But deep down, he knew something else was coming. A goodbye. And a change none of them were ready for. Chapter 10. One Last Roll. The next morning, Misty Pines was still and foggy, like the town itself was holding its breath. Clouds hung low over the hills, and puddles shimmered in the streets as sunlight peeked through in watery rays. Inside the Wexler RV, the family was packing up. "Well," Mr. Wexler said, folding up the map on the kitchen table, "my next contract's in Idaho. Looks like we're hitting the road again." Robbie frowned. "But what about Ellie, Landon, and Zeus?" "They're staying," Mayo said, his voice quiet. "This is their home." The words tasted strange. After everything they'd been through, it was hard to imagine moving on without them. That afternoon, the families met at Pine Pin Lanes one last time. Not for a mystery, just for fun. No crimes, no walkies, no gum wrappers or disguises. Just friends, family, and bowling shoes with frayed laces. Ellie bowled a spare. Landon got a strike. Robbie rolled his ball so slowly it took almost a full minute to reach the pins, knocking down just one. Everyone cheered like it was 10. Zeus lay on a faded carpet mat, watching with tired but happy eyes. "You've got good friends," he told Mayo. "You're one of them," Mayo said, sitting cross-legged beside him. Zeus's nose twitched, and he gave a small doggy smile. "I won't be around forever, kid. That's the way it goes." "But it's not fair," Mayo whispered. "No," Zeus said. "It's not. But it's life. And even when it's unfair, we love anyway. That's the point." Meatball sat down on the other side of Zeus, resting his head beside the old dog. "You were the best partner I ever had," Meatball said softly. Zeus closed his eyes for a moment. "You're not so bad yourself, Short Stack." They hugged goodbye in the parking lot. Ellie wiped her eyes. "We'll write. We'll visit," Mayo promised. Landon saluted Robbie. "Agent Cupcake forever." "Forever," Robbie said, sniffling. Then they climbed into the RV, windows fogged from the warmth inside. Mayo sat by the back window, watching Zeus shrink in the distance until he was just a quiet little shape beside a boy and girl. That night, parked at a rest stop in the hills, Meatball curled into a blanket nest beside Mayo's bed. Rain started again, soft and steady. Mayo stared at the ceiling, tears silently slipping down his cheeks. "I miss him," he whispered. "I know," Meatball said. "It's not fair." "It never is," Meatball whispered back. "But it's okay to cry. I'll cry with you." So they did. Boy and Bulldog. Until the rain lulled them to sleep and the RV hummed quietly beneath the stars. To be continued.